Vegan recipes with Pat and Emily.
Hi, thanks for joining me. Today we are going to make gnocchis from scratch. You'll need a potato, some flour, and some salt. For your ingredients, let's get started with the potato. I am going to just cut this potato in a couple big chunks, and then I am going to microwave it, and we will be back. Pull the potatoes out of the microwave, and I'm checking the potatoes to see if they're soft enough. They are. I'm just going to let them cool until I can handle them. Just going to get all of the peel off of the potatoes. You want to do this while they are still hot. You can bake your potatoes for this. You'll still need to do this when they're hot, and you will need to adjust the amount of flour you add. You might add a little bit less. If you do this with potatoes that you boil, you are going to add a lot more flour, which is why I rather do the microwave version. Now I'm going to take a fork and completely mash the potatoes up. Oh, I'm going to want to get that dark spot out of there. Let me grab my knife and cut it out. Now back to mashing. We want to get these potatoes pretty smooth. To this potato that I am mashing up, I am going to add salt. Mix that in. While we're mixing in the salt, we'll go ahead and mash our potato a little bit more. That looks good. So now I'm going to add my flour. You're just going to fully incorporate all of this. The recipe will be typed below, and a link to a printable PDF will be provided. Just keep stirring this until everything is mixed. I'm use my hands to just make sure I really have this all mixed well. No potato clumps, no flour clumps. You will end up with a very dry, crumbly dough like this. I am going to now form it all into kind of one solid ball. I'm going to cover this and let it rest for 30 minutes. And then we'll be back. It's been 30 minutes, and I'm going to divide the dough into 4 equal sections. I've just cut the dough in half and then in half the other way. I will take one of these to use now and set the other 3 aside and cover them up. You're just going to work with a quarter of the dough at a time. We are going to take the dough and roll it out as best we can. It's kind of crumbly, so you kind of have to form it as you roll it. We are going to keep rolling this and working it back together until we end up with a log that is about a half of an inch thick. And I'll stop a little bit later and check it. Okay, I'm just going to stop and check it. It's a little fat on this end. We'll check the other end also. Still a little fat. I'm just gonna have to keep rolling it out some. Alright, I'm happy with that. Then we are gonna cut these into 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch pieces. At the end here, I'm gonna have to slide this back onto my cutting board. That's a little small. I'm just gonna add that back into my dough in the bowl. Then I like to put a little bit of flour out on a corner of my cutting board. And you're going to need a fork that I also dip in flour. Now I'm going to take each little dough ball, give it a little roll and a little shaping, and mark it with my fork. You don't have to do the extra little roll with the fork mark, but I feel like it helps the gnocchis hold more sauce when you're eating them. They look prettier. The little bit of flour is just in case it starts to get sticky. Every once in a while you will want to re-dip your fork or get a little more flour on it. Gnocchis have always been one of my favorite pastas to eat, and now I feel like they're one of my favorite pastas to make too. It is fun to make your own spaghetti though. Stretch it out and dry it. We will just keep doing this until we get all of the gnocchis formed. That one's a little rough. I'm going to re-roll it. Get some more flour on my fork. Your fork eventually will start to stick into your gnocchis. That's why you're going to want to reflour it. You'll just see it happening. Alright, I will finish this little bit of this roll. I'm going to get a pot, fill it with water, salt that water, get it on the stove, and turn it on high. We'll be back. This is the last piece of dough I have to work with. I will finish this. And then by that time, my water should be boiling, and we will get these on the stove. I am just going to continue the process until all of our gnocchis are formed. All of our gnocchis are formed and our water is boiling, so now I'm going going to put them into our pot. When you first put these into the pots, you are going to want to give them a stir to make sure they don't stick to the bottom or each other. And you're going to keep this on high, and you want it to come back to a full boil. All the gnocchis are floating, so we're going to give it a minute, and then we're going to strain this. After the gnocchi started to float, I let them boil for a minute, and now we're just going to strain them. After I'm done with this, I'm going to plate up some gnocchis and get some sauce. I have plated up some gnocchis, and I am using our sauce recipe from last week. That's our favorite sauce to go with these gnocchis. Here we go. I have always been a big fan of gnocchis, but until recently was not very good at making them. But through trial and error, I think we've got a winning recipe here. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Stay tuned for a few quick bloopers.
And cut.
Our dough into 4 gnocchi pressing footage. Is that a word?
What are you wanting?
I want a little more gnocchi